I'm sure you, our wonderful listener, never has this problem, but a few minutes before you go on the radio and the text starts causing problems. Now, for some reason, when you watch this back, I'm very, very glary. It seems like I don't know what's going on with this camera. It started having problems last week, and now I can't change any of the settings to take the exposure down. So at the moment, it just looks like I'm basically rather angelic. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, angelic Gareth. Yeah, or
Very
you look
much.
like you need some winter sun, you know?
So a lot of love coming in for your feature. In fact, I was over in Birmingham at the weekend, and when people asked about the show, your feature and you were the person that they were asking for.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, that's really nice to hear. Thank you. I'm enjoying doing this slot, and
Love it.
as you know, I love the archaeology. I love the ancient world. So getting a chance to share it, even just listening, not maybe even seeing the objects, getting a chance to see it and hear about it, I just love sharing with you.
So here we go then.
Good.
And if you are new to this feature, this is called Digging in the Dirt. Every Monday, Chris from Moorlands College. Moorlands College, by the way, I'm reading this off the sign behind him, established in 1948.
You got it.
For all your educational needs.
It doesn't say that, surely.
Moorlands.ac.uk is where you can head over to book an open day. You can view the prospectus, and you can also apply for any of the courses online. So what we do last week, was it last week we were talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yeah, or was it the week before?
I do get mixed up. So if it was the week before, then I don't know what was happening last week. I've completely forgotten about that edition.
I've blanked. I can tell you about things that happened 3,000 years ago.
But not last week. So, looking forward to this. I try my very best to describe what I see in front of me. So, Chris, presumably you've got the item this week.
I have. And now look, what I've got, I will just tell you, for those listening, this is probably the most famous bit of rock anywhere in the world, okay? And here it is. If we had a drum roll, we can have it.
There we go.
Actually, I'll tell you, this is a replica, and you may have seen this before. I don't know, but this is a very significant piece of rock or stone. And just before you describe it, Gareth, I will just say it is actually about 3 foot high, 4 foot high. So this is only a smaller replica. I wouldn't be holding it like this if it was the real thing.
So basically, I think that this is an original piece of the M6 that Chris is holding up at the moment. It's been resurfaced quite a few times over the years, but no, this is the original surface of the M6 that he's holding up. So it is. It looks like a piece of slate almost.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's got a lot. It looks like text on it.
It is, and that's the thing that makes this amazing.
Okay, so it's certainly not English. It's completely different. It looks like it's Egyptian.
Excellent. I think you're getting right there. Yeah, but is it just?
Is it the Rosetta Stone?
You got it. You've got it.
Oh, the first time I've ever done this, and this is just absolutely by chance. But yesterday I was listening to the Frank Skinner podcast, and he was saying how he took his son to go and see the original one in the London Museum.
Yeah. Yeah, in the British Museum, been there for 200 years. It's been there on display. So it's an amazing.
I don't quite know where to go with this feature now, because usually we say you can guess what it is and send a message in during the next song, but we know that it is a replica of the Rosetta Stone. But I suppose we could say, have you ever been to see the Rosetta Stone? And if so, get in touch with us and let us know. Tracy, straight off the mark, by the way, she says that from your direction on the radio, Gareth, is it something to do with the Ten Commandments? Well, she did get in there first before I said that there was a lot of text on it, and it was the Rosetta Stone.
But that's a good suggestion, actually. We could pick up on that later on. Hey, I tell you, another question for the listeners, though. Take a guess. Because of this, we know how the ancient Egyptians pronounce the word for cat. So we say cat. Can you guess what the ancient Egyptian word was for cat? Because we know how they actually said it.
I do hope it's meow.
You've got it!
Oh, yes!
You've got
I'm on absolute fire this morning. Not only have I guessed the artifact, but I've also guessed Egyptian language as well. Well, what we will do anyway, we will play a song so that Chris can prepare himself, not that he needs to, for the piece that we're going to do all about the risotto. The Rosetta Stone. So you get in touch with us. You'll be able to see our number on the website for WhatsApp, but I'll give it you anyway. 0161 511 9555. We're going to be talking about, if you've got any questions about this, the why can't I say it now?
Rosetta.
The Rosetta Stone. If you've got any questions, then we're going to be putting them to Chris next. Well, you'll remember this for a long, long time. Where were you when Gareth actually did an educated guess on something that Chris has asked? Do you know, there's those moments in life. There's, you know, the time. Well, the sad times when you heard that Elvis Presley had died and stuff. But this is up there with those sort of poignant moments in time. So the Rosetta Stone is what we discovered that Chris was holding up. Not the real one, because actually it is in a museum in this country, isn't it, Chris?
That's right. It's in the British Museum. So if you're in London, got a couple of spare hours, completely free, you can go in, look at this, many other fantastic artifacts that connect to the Bible. But certainly the Rosetta Stone is a must-see.
And just tell us a little bit about, because there are some angry people who say that it shouldn't be in this country, a bit like the Elgin marbles. I bet there's quite a few other items like that where we've got them, but should we actually have them?
Okay, well, let me tell you what it is first, then we'll get into
Yes, yeah, of course. Go on.
You might want it back. So, I mean, it comes from Egypt, obviously, from near a small town called Rosetta. It wasn't originally called the Rosetta Stone. The Egyptians didn't call it that. That's just because of where it was found. And it was found, actually, by the army of Napoleon. Napoleon, when he was campaigning in Egypt, this is 1799, so it's a long time ago. He took scholars with him, and they found this. And this was an absolute gem of a key to unlocking the ancient world. See, here's why. You've got an inscription on here. One thing, it's a coronation decree. It's actually quite boring, but it's a decree from a king in the ancient world. And it's given, the same text is given in 3 different languages, 3 different scripts. So the top bit is Egyptian hieroglyphs. The middle bit was the everyday Egyptian of the ancient world, and the bottom bit was Greek. And that's much the same as the Greek of the Bible, the New Testament. Now, before this was found, no one knew how to read the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Total mystery. They could have been anything. They might have just been symbols. Nobody knew how to read this. When this was found, it gave scholars the key to work out how to read Egyptian hieroglyphs. Because they could read the bottom bit, the bit that was in Greek, they knew what this top bit said, and they just had to unlock it. Now, Gareth, I say they just had to unlock it. It took about 20 years to decipher it, to work out how the hieroglyphs work. But after 20 years, they cracked it, and now we can read the ancient Egyptian texts. We know the sound of the Egyptian word for cat, as we said earlier, meow. Not only can we read it, we know what it sounds like. We know, for example, the name Moses, or Moses. Moses is not actually a Hebrew name. It's an Egyptian name. It's there in words like Ramesses, one of the Egyptian pharaohs, Ra-Moses. So Moses was given a word that was a play on the Hebrew word to draw out of the water, but the name of Moses was actually an Egyptian name. And we know these things because of the Rosetta Stone. And that means we can know a lot now about ancient Egypt and tied in with Bible history. I'm not going to go into that with you this morning, but if you sign up for a course at Moorlands, we tell you loads of stuff about the incredible ways in which Bible history can be checked by Egyptian history, and we know it fits with what we know of the ancient world. Anyway, your question though, valid question here, right? Why we got it in London? Yeah, Egypt would love to have it back. Greece would like to have the Elgin marbles back. Countries would like to have things back that were taken from them. It's a very complicated subject, this one. First of all, the British Museum cannot give things back. That's legal. They can't do it. The only way of giving something back would be if Parliament decreed they had to give it back. It would have to go to Parliament, not to the British Museum, the demand to return something. And then it's very complicated to know how you return things, because actually many things in the ancient world moved around, so that you might find something in ancient Assyria, modern Iraq, that actually had come from Egypt or from Israel, from Canaan. So things moved around in the ancient world. And then more recently, in the imperial age, things have moved around. There's a beautiful inscription we'll talk about another time that was found in Jerusalem. But if you want to see it, you've got to go to Turkey, to Istanbul, because they took it from there and took it to their museum. Now, all I can really say, Gareth, is that debate will go on and different objects will get different debates. I would say the British Museum have preserved this decree for 200 years for free, pretty well every day of the year. Every day, every year, you've been able to see this for free in one of the major cities, major capital of Europe. So I think the British Museum have done a pretty good job of recording and preserving something that could have been smashed to pieces. It was found in a state of wartime, right? So the French found it. The British defeated the French. And as a result of that victory in the Battle of the Nile, the British took it from the French and brought it back to England, to London. If they hadn't, it would be in Paris right now, and the same debate would go on, because Napoleon would have took it back to Paris and not let the English bring it back to London. So that's a kind of rambling answer, Gareth, but that's the kind of debate that there is.
But really interesting, and I suppose you could argue that, well, it's not as though it's kept away and nobody can see it. It is there for the public, for the world to go and see, and we know it's in a safe place. But really interesting, that you should pick up on that, just as I was learning about it yesterday. Some great, not really questions, but people who have been to see it saying it's an absolutely incredible piece of artifact. That's from Brian, who's been in touch. And something about here. So I think you've probably answered this already, but Tina says, I do know that it's got something to do with translations, and it's because of that that we were able to know what was inside the pyramids, hieroglyphics and stuff.
Absolutely right. I mean, there's a whole language programming software out there that calls itself Rosetta. And that's because that word Rosetta is now associated with translation and with language. And, it's a beautiful thing to think. Just think of this for a moment. In the book of Acts, Acts chapter 7, verse 22, Stephen says, he's preaching, one of the early Christians, he says that Moses was trained in the language and literature of the Egyptians. Now, Moses lived about 1400 BC, and he was able to read and write in these Egyptian hieroglyphs. So we can now know the language that Moses was using. Now, of course, he also used Hebrew, and the Hebrew develops, but he knew the reading, the literature, the whole language of these ancient Egyptians. And we can now have access back to that language, that world of Moses, because of the Rosetta Stone.
Really interesting stuff. Thank you, as always, Chris. And remember, Chris is from Moorlands College, if you don't know. And there are many courses up there, part-time or full-time. You can book the open day now to go and have a look around and to speak to Chris and the other lecturers. You can apply online. You can contact them. It is moorlands.ac.uk. Always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you.